How are you feeling? Yeah? Are you happy with the documentary?
No comment.
So at this moment, I am guessing that she did watch the documentary, but it was an interesting day in court today. But what really caught everyone's attention wasn't the proceedings, it was Dr. Nandipha herself. She looked put together and formal, with her hair neatly done and nails polished, and she really looked very calm today. You couldn't help but notice her presence. And then came Thabo Bester.
How are you feeling?
And of course, we all noticed the matching outfits. Whether intentional or not, it made a statement. But before we dive into the review of Beauty and the Bester, because that's what I want to talk about today, I want to pause on something more emotional. It's heartbreaking to think about Dr. Nandipha's husband, the real husband, having to tell Nandipha's brother that this is not the Nandipha he knew. And as a parent, having to explain this kind of situation to your kids must be very painful. But let's dive into the documentary itself. The story of Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipha Magudumana is one of the wildest in South Africa. Fake deaths, prison escape, luxury life, and a love story that turned criminal. Many people were very disappointed, feeling like it was more of the same information we have seen elsewhere. It seems like a repetition of what's been covered before. So let's start with what did work. The documentary looks great, very high quality, with good camera work, editing, and interviews, right? People expected a fresh angle or deeper story, especially after we saw that Dr. Nandipha's father was going to be part of the documentary. But to be fair, there were a few things that stood out. The Tanzania arrest. The documentary gave us more details than before on how Thabo and Nandipha were caught trying to run. That part was explained better. The personal assistant guy who was interviewed, now his story felt real. It added to the story and it helped us to understand what type of a person Dr. Nandipha was. Production quality. If you are into film, editing and storytelling, you will notice the work was top tier. The music, the camera work, and pacing were impressive. But then here is what didn't work. They kept pushing the idea that Dr. Nandipha was just a victim. But without her speaking for herself, the message didn't fully land. Her father was included, but gave us nothing new. He could have explained how he knew Thabo Bester, or if Nandipha ever introduced them, but he didn't. It felt like a missed chance. A lot of the guests were the same ones we saw in the Showmax version. So the whole thing sometimes felt like a remix, not a fresh take. But maybe the reason why Netflix didn't have a problem doing the same thing that maybe Showmax did regarding the Beauty and the Bester is because their audience is worldwide. Showmax, on the other hand, is primarily focused Africa. So Netflix might have wanted to give their international audience a glimpse into what happened in South Africa, which could be why they processed with their own documentary besides Showmax already covering the story. It's possible they didn't want to be left behind, but rather they aimed to share this story with a broader audience. But let's talk about Pearl Thusi. One of the most talked about parts for the wrong reason was Pearl Thusi's brief appearance. In the story, she shared a 2011 story of how Thabo Bester lured her with a fake audition, pulled a knife on her, and then she tried to help him spiritually by introducing her to her church pastor. While Pearl shared this as a moment of regret and reflection, many viewers didn't buy it. They said, wait, so Pearl Thusi was almost killed by Thabo Bester, and then she took him to a pastor, and they later left together. One person reacted. Others felt it was too short, too shallow, and not relevant enough to justify her involvement in the documentary. If the 2 minutes of Pearl Thusi is all we have, I do not think she should have featured. Her story was not strong or deeper enough. Another layer of criticism came from how Pearl Thusi portrayed herself. The Bible, the prayer, the pastor moment didn't land with audience because, quite frankly, we do not know Pearl as a church girl, others they said. She said Bester pretended to offer her a job, pulled a knife on her, and she later tried to help him by taking him to the pastor and giving him a Bible. But then what she said after that, they left the pastor's place together and she stopped to ask the police to take him home. That part had a lot of people seriously confused. How do I live with someone who just threatened me with a knife and then ask police to drop him off? Honestly, maybe it really happened, but it didn't add much to the story. But many people are saying there was no depth, no follow-up, and nothing that linked their experience to the bigger Thabo Bester scam, which at the end we say there was no meat to the bone. Viewers expected more credible voices like Simpiwe Ngema, who had actual documented links to Bester's company and even visited him in prison. Some even questioned why her management agreed to their appearance at all. Perhaps the biggest miss, Dr. Nandipha herself. Had she agreed to appear in the documentary, it could have changed everything. Her side of the story, in her own words, could have supported the victim narrative the doc was clearly aiming for. Without it, the entire production felt one-sided and in places disconnected. It's clear Netflix wanted their own version of Thabo Bester's story. They didn't want to be left out, but in the rush to release something, they missed a bigger opportunity. If they had waited a few years, maybe even got Dr. Nandipha to appear, it could have been a top-tier, next-level documentary that would have changed everything. Netflix clearly spent money on it. There were some interesting guests too. Happy Simelani's story was really deep. Her being invited to Cape Town raised real questions. Penny also gave real, honest opinions about Dr. Nandipha and the whole situation in the entertainment world. Nandipha's brother came across more polished this time compared to the Showmax version. But even with all that, many people felt the documentary was just a repeat of what we already knew, especially if you already watched the Showmax one. Here is what people noticed. They seemed to push the idea that Dr. Nandipha was just a victim, which felt one-sided. Her father's involvement wasn't explored properly. He is clearly important to the story, but we still don't know what he really knew or did. As someone who loves film, storytelling and editing, I have to say the visual side was excellent, 10 over 10 for the filmmaking side. But when it comes to the actual content, Netflix rushed it. The story could have been so much more if they waited, did deeper research, and included people who were truly close to the scam. Beauty and the Bester had all the tools to be groundbreaking, but it ended up as a polished version of what we already knew. The documentary looked good, sounded important, but tells us very little we didn't already know. And until we hear from Dr. Nandipha herself, the full truth remains a mystery, one polished documentary at a time. That is my take on this Beauty and the Bester documentary. Please do leave your comments down below and let me know what you guys think. For those that watched it, did you enjoy it? Please do leave your comments down below and let me know what you guys think. Until the next time, peace.